Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Phil Bywaters. This evening we are honoured to acknowledge Admiral David Johnston, who as of today is the newly appointed Chief of the Defence Force, and Mrs Belinda Johnston. Air Marshal Robert Chipman, newly appointed Vice Chief of the Defence Force, and Mrs Elise Chipman. Mr Sun Ho Kim, Vice Minister of the Ministry of National Defence, Republic of Korea, and their accompanying delegations. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association, and we welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Manly State School visiting from Manly, Queensland. If you're able, I invite you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you wish to and you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of July 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private William Huggett. William was born on the 1st of November 1894 to Stephen and Rosetta Huggett at Braidwood, a small town in the southern tablelands of New South Wales. Little is known of his early life. William attended the local public school in Braidwood, where his family remained throughout his childhood and teenage years. Before the outbreak of the First World War, William was working as a spoiler in the quarries in southeastern New South Wales, particularly around the town of Kiama. When the Waratah Recruitment March passed through Kiama on the 3rd of December 1915 on its way to Sydney, William was one of the men in the town to sign up and join the march. He officially enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 20th of December 1915 at the Liverpool camp in Sydney. He was assigned to the 16th Reinforcement of the 1st Australian Infantry Battalion with the rank of private and commenced training for active service. After several months of training in Australia, William left Sydney in HMAT Macquarie on the 1st of April 1916, along with other members of the 16th Reinforcement for the 1st Battalion, including many fellow Waratahs. William arrived at the 1st Australian Divisional Base Depot on the 20th of May. At the end of June, he was assigned to the 1st Anzac Entrenching Battalion and travelled to Bayeux on the French-Belgian border. He spent the next 2 weeks with the battalion, setting up bivouacs, shelters for Allied soldiers in Belgium. On the 11th of July, William was one of 37 soldiers dispatched from the entrenching battalion as reinforcements for the 1st Australian Infantry Battalion in France. Along with other reinforcements, he travelled by train to Vignacourt and joined the battalion on the 12th of July. His first and only major battle was to take place just a few days later near the French village of Pozières as part of the Allied fighting in the Somme. Pozières and its surrounding ridges offered valuable defensive high ground in the middle of the Somme. At the start of July, the area was held by the Germans. Initial attempts in early July by the British Army to capture the village and force the Germans to retreat from the position failed. As a result, a major Allied offensive was launched on the village and surrounds on the 23rd of July, 1916. Over the next 42 days, the Allies made 19 separate attacks against German positions in and around Pozières, ultimately succeeding in capturing the village. The success came at a cost. Australian casualties following the battle numbered 23,000. 5,285 of these casualties came from the 1st Australian Division in the first 5 days of fighting. Among these early casualties was Private William Huggett. Sometime between the 23rd and 25th of July, William was killed in action while attempting to capture enemy positions around Pozières. In the chaos of fighting, his final moments were not recorded. Fellow Waratah volunteer Private Ernest Lucas wrote home following the first attack, informing his sister that poor Bill Huggett got killed in the fighting. Sympathy poured into William's family and friends in both Kiama and Braidwood, with several articles in the local papers expressing sadness at his death. William Huggett was 21 years old. His body was buried in the vicinity of Pozières after the fighting. However, his grave was lost and his body was never recovered. He is commemorated at the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial among the 10,885 Australians who were killed while fighting in France and have no known grave. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name listed on the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Huggett, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. I wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.